Hello, Ryan here with another uncomplication, and I am doing my ritual here, staring at the squiggly lines of the Bitcoin price chart. I figured I would offer a few thoughts. That's all I really can do at this point is just check in and be super honest and transparent about where I'm at in relating to this market. It's still something that I find a lot of interest in. It's still something that I follow. And now, instead of feeling like I'm strapped into a roller coaster, I feel like I'm more of a roller coaster scientist. And so, having experienced the G force and the up and downs, I have been enjoying kind of the disengaged approach. I mentioned in the last video and even the videos prior to that I made the decision earlier in 2023 to sell quite a bit of the Bitcoin that I had that was in profit. And I did that because it was a huge stepping stone towards my overall recovery as a functioning, productive member of society. These are my own stories, my own reasons. I don't need to go too much into it, but the bottom line was, for me, I had debt on the one hand that I had just built up because I was running a company for 10 years, and then when I left that, I was so depressed and angry that I couldn't really go back to work in the same way that I had. So I kind of lived on the will of the universe, and part of that was just tapping into some debt that I had at hand, and I wasn't making my ends meet, and I was investing all of this in crypto, and that became this sort of untenable place where my ability to just move forward was being short-circuited by the dependency of these investment strategies or whatever to yield something in the short term. And so I took, the modest gains that I had made buying in kind of this accumulation phase, and then when it felt like it was a good time for me just personally to use some of that in a way that was benefiting my life, I did so. And so I never looked back from that. And on that foundation, I have started a new business. I have moved into an art studio. I am teaching. Like, there's all of these really foundational for me pieces that the crypto was able to kind of help me get out of a situation that was sucking me down. So I don't need to go too much into that. I sense that there's probably a lot of people that are like, oh, you sold and then the price went higher, so I can't trust you anymore. And I check in with myself sometimes, and I ask, like, am I just really too quick to predict, or too quick to think I know enough to say anything about anything? And that's why I just keep coming back and checking in with what I kind of feel are these core tenets or first principles. And so let's just kind of look at what's going on, and I'll walk you through my thought process. So the first thing is, I haven't even done this in a while, but I just want to check, what is the consumer view of the market right now? So I wonder if I haven't launched like Coinbase or any of these types of apps in a long time. Sign in. All right, I haven't updated my app in too long. Here's what I am hinting at, though, is that in my experience, whenever I go into an app like a Coinbase or Robinhood or Webull or any of those, it's got kind of the interface of a sports betting app, and it is posing to look like it's there to help you make informed decisions. And actually, in my opinion, it is one of the most misleading interfaces, because it is giving you a string of hype and good news and we could even go to, here's a great example. Let's just go to CoinDesk. Just on a daily basis, if you follow the narrative, it's just, could run towards 48K. I'm not going to go through headline by headline, but it's just interesting that the news that's being fed is always super positive in periods of distribution, and it's super negative in areas of accumulation. And what I mean by that is if you look at the chart, and I feel like I've drawn this on the chart so many times, but if you go back in time and you look at what the news articles were saying on these same outlets and the same influencers, the same expert, top investment strategy, asset manager predicts blah, blah, blah by blah, blah, blah. I've drawn this so many times that it's so bullish and moon looking, the bullhorns and the moon, at the worst possible time for uneducated consumers, and just kind of the retail investor. And then in these moments where it's actually advantageous to be building your stacks, that's when those same outlets are predicting, and reporting on the worst. And it looks like it's going lower. And so what happens is, and this is what happens to me, I'm assuming it happens to other people too, but in these zones, it has the effect that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cycle back in, but I'm gonna wait till, I want to catch that bottom, I want to catch lower. Okay, we're at 26, but man, I'd really love to catch that 24. And so as you sit there waiting and the news is bad and it's kind of causing you to just sort of wait, then things run in the other direction. That's the accumulation pattern. And then in these relative tops or even all-time highs, and I would say this is happening now, and there's a couple of things I'll point to, but my skin personally, maybe it's PTSD, maybe it's naivete, it could be a whole mix of things, but I bristle like an uncomfortable cat when people that have a green button that says buy are also giving me the best news possible. That's how selling works. That's how free markets work. But it's being on the wrong side of the deal. And so the principle that I've just had in my mind, based on a short window of time, is buy when people are greedy and sell, buy when people are fearful and sell when people are greedy, because greedy people will pay more for the same thing than fearful people will. And so, part of me, the ego is maybe prone to some negative self-talk that like, oh, you made this life choice. You made this decision that it was more important to just have that clarity of no debt and moving into my next projects with a floor under me. And then the ego says like, oh, but you sold yourself out. And when I really did the math on it, I'm a man of modest means. And so the amount that I cashed out to pay off some of that debt, if I had let it ride till now, it's like an additional $3,000. Like maybe $3,500 would have been the net gain, which is, a fraction of what I'm making in a month. So it's not like life changing, but it feels personal. And everyone can get on here. I don't know why I get so defensive. I can hear the people saying, because I've heard it before. I've heard people be like, oh, well, if you can't detach your feelings, then you're blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. The whole fear and greed, there's an index for it. That's what these feelings are. These are the narratives that I have found run in my head that get me to do the wrong things at the wrong time. Because when I'm looking at all of these predictions and the analysts and like, oh shit, is this blast off time and I'm going to be left behind, and then you FOMO in. That's what greed means. People are greedy. And so I have down here one of my favorite indicators now that I found, and I think they've just updated it, because before it used to have to like refresh on every screen, and it would only work on like the monthly or the daily or something. But now this is the let me just show this is the crypto fear and greed index. And so it's really awesome that at the same time we're looking at the price chart, we can also be looking at the fear and greed index. I used to have to pop over to the alternative.me, which is still a great, reference point, but I just like seeing in situ along with the chart that as far as this fear and greed index goes, we are back in greed. We're closing in on 75 to 80 on the scale of 0 to 100, and it's not hard for me to go back and look at the effect on the market when things are in greed. So let's just draw a horizontal line here, and boop. And let's just look at when things are above this line in greed. What happens? What is the wave of the market? Because it is an oscillator. It does go back and forth. So we've been above. I just drew this kind of arbitrarily around 70. We've been over 70 now for 5 out of the 6 last weeks. And we came up pretty sharply from a place of fear in October. So in a pretty short amount of time, we've rocketed back up into the greed zone. Did I say fear earlier? I meant greed. We're up in the greed zone. So last times that this happened, and I know the chart is really busy here, and some of you are driving and commuting and whatever else, so you can't really see all the little details. But the last time we were up this high was at the all-time high, and the price was $20,000 higher, but we were in the same level of greed. And what happened after that was a huge drop-off. Prior to that, we had above 70 greed in that first little the second little distribution after our big Wyckoff distribution. This is in July to August 2021, and we got up this high, and then we crashed back down, and so did the price. So I mean, my only point here is those that are holding also know when to be selling. And it is my belief that despite all the mythology around hodling, that a market is here to make money, and those that do it well are using strategies that account for the wave form of the market. The wave form meaning it doesn't just go all the way up. I'm holding onto this one piece of goodie and I'm just going to ride it to the moon, and then no one else can afford it, but I'm a millionaire. No, it makes more sense to have this thing and to sell it and then buy it back cheap and then sell it again expensive and then buy it back cheap and then sell it again expensive, minute to minute, second to second, day to day, month to month, year to year. That is the ultimate investment strategy, right? You're making money all the time. I believe that's what's happening. I don't believe I'm good at that. In fact, I know I'm not, but I believe that is what's happening. And so when I look at the confluence of these oscillating indicators, moving from low to high, over and over, the two that I've been kind of just keeping an eye on are the greed and the stochastic RSI. An oscillating curve that goes between 0 at the lowest and 100 at the highest. So we're always somewhere between 0 and 100. And the way the calculation is composed, it gives us a reading that is essentially oversold when it's below 20 and overbought when it's above 80. And overbought and greed, those two things go hand in hand. And so if something is in greed and it's overbought, eventually it has a turnaround. Enough people are being sold this bill of goods, holding the bag, that the price naturally flags and it comes back down. And the question is always, how far is it going to come down? Where is it going to find support? Is the momentum going to continue to the upside? Is there going to be a bigger retracement? All these kind of words come into play. And so what I'm looking at is that I think crypto is cool. I would like to own more crypto. I just am not going to be buying any while these are cooking. Doesn't matter what the news is telling me. It doesn't matter what even my own self-talk is telling me about what I did last time or anything else. I have to stick to what I feel are just fundamental principles. And I said this in the last video, and I really believe it. Crypto is not going anywhere without you. There will always be projects. There will always be opportunities. There will always be, especially in Bitcoin, I believe, the opportunity to invest in a scarce asset that has a compelling narrative that people want to be a part of. So it's a good place ultimately to put your investment. I just think, for me personally, it's a shitty place to be trying to outsmart the system or make life-changing generational wealth with a few quick strokes. I don't think it's that anymore. Maybe it was that. Maybe it could have been that for some people at some times. And the stories I've heard of those people, I'm sorry to say, are often not the life that I would want anyway. So my point is, for me, and this is just me, I'm not saying anyone needs to do this, but I have observed how much more enjoyable, fulfilling, connected, flowing, and meaningful my life is when my investment is in, I almost said tangible, but just closer to home relationships and activities, and so that continues to be my outlook. And so when I said I'm not on the roller coaster ride anymore, it felt really, really good to use my investment in Bitcoin to erase maybe some of the overextension that I had gotten myself into. That felt a lot better than those moments of feeling smart because my balance was up, but nobody around me cared because I was acting like a cracked out lunatic. So I'm not in the space enough now to really know how everyone's feeling, how everyone's acting, but I sense as I see, let's go to I think this is Coinbase. Yeah, Coinbase. So, oops. Just looking at the volume of participants here. I made a comment on this last video as well, and just kind of noted that the volume of buying is lower than it was in the last what we would have called a bull run. It might be getting back to the levels of kind of the pre-bull run. But anyway, I just look at the volume as how many people, how many trades, how many actual participants are involved in this. And we are kind of climbing back into that. And so for me, my interest is as much, how can I use this thing that's happening that I can put money into and get money out of? How can I use that to kind of further my own growth and intentions while also, as an individual, not getting so consumed by the beast that I'm kind of sold a narrative or sold a future or sold a view of the world. I mean, I haven't been on YouTube in a while, and I'm not saying any of this to sound superior or anything. I noticed when I went back on YouTube the other night for the first time in a while, and just the narrative there about, financial doom and gloom, and I mean, it's such a whirlpool of bad feeling that when I'm out of that, when I'm removed from that, I have so much more that I value that has nothing to do with those things or those opinions or those predictions. And so I guess, yeah, I mean, this is an appeal. This is an appeal that, if this is not financial advice, this is spiritual guidance. I have found that when I focus on the things that actually open my heart, open my world to new possibilities, new opportunities, that there's energy that flows in those directions, and I can manifest and create and and meet people and do things. And that this thing that I'm looking at and its complement to YouTube and X and Twitter, and that is just like this leech that's just sucking your attention, sucking money, sucking autonomy. And yeah, that's hard for me. So I mean, that's really it. Not a whole lot more to add. It is, like I started off saying, it is pretty wild to see. I mean, this is just what I've observed, is it always zigs when you think you're gonna zag, when you think it's gonna zag. And anyone can come and judge my opinions and whatever else, blah blah blah, but there's also a reason that some of the articles that I look at the most are, whenever there's a move like this, you read about, the last one I read was $600 million in shorts were liquidated like in an instant right here. And whenever you think it's going to zig, it zags. And it's like, okay, we build the case for it going down, and then we go up and we wipe everybody out. And then we build a place for it going up more, and we go down and we wipe everybody out. And then we make a case for it going down more, and then we go up. So it's like this, I don't even know what it's like. I'm picturing there's like this guy on YouTube, or he's like a fighter, and he just like has this way of like head fainting all the time, like, and like he's on the street and he's like to these big dudes like, punch me in the face. And he's just so like wiggly and elusive that every like time someone tries to punch him, he's not there anymore. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling with Bitcoin at this point, is like patience. And even though I'm sitting here and I'm kind of making predictions, I'm really trying to like, bad Ryan, you don't know enough to know what you don't know, and everyone knows what you know. So it's like this infinite knot of logic, and so predictions are ridiculous. First principles, I think, are priceless. And so that's all I've got. That's all I got left when it comes to crypto, is that, zoom out and look at the BLX on the weekly with the logarithmic regression bands. And, where we're at makes total sense. All the drama, all the news, all the pomp and circumstance. Let me get rid of all these last layers that I drew on here. So here's what we got. We've got a digital tradable poker chip whose story has been one of going up and to the right. It's kind of tapering off. There's no longer 2,000% gains to be had. And we've got, in the past, these, pump and dump style, single peak, big run-ups and crash downs. And now we're moving into more of a mature, lots of little waves, lots of little opportunities. And overall, from this logarithmic regression band, we have put in these tops in this red zone, and we came back down into the green, and we've been kind of flirting with this blue line. We're not anywhere close to red again. I mean, maybe we can come up and kiss it, but like, it's just, keep it in perspective. Ryan, I'm talking to you. This isn't going anywhere. It doesn't really matter. There's a lot more to be gained just from understanding the human principles at play than there is, I think, in making amazing, life-changing money. So last little thought here. And so the funny thing about these like big, dark, shadowy, behind the scenes entities is that they're all corporations. They all have websites, they all have employees, they all have mission statements, and you can go to blackrock.com and you can go to investment strategies and you can come to what is an ETF, and they'll give you their data on ETFs. It's kind of the sales pitch for it. And so one of the things that's just really interesting is that if you look at what they're talking about, iShares is a leading ETF provider featuring more than 800 ETFs globally. So Bitcoin will be one more of 800 globally. And of all of the ETFs that they have right now, 800 globally, they have about 1.9 trillion in assets under management. So you add one more ETF, which is Bitcoin, which is compelling. It's an interesting narrative. But how many years? I think it's been since like the 90s that they started doing ETFs. They have that here too. Since the first ETF in 1993, the entire industry has now 3 trillion now invested in ETFs. So 2/3 of the ETFs are BlackRock. There's another third that's unaccounted for, and 3 trillion totally now invested. What's important about that? Well, if we go to the total crypto market cap, the total crypto market cap right now is 1.5 trillion. So even if every cent of BlackRock's ETF portfolio of all the ETFs was brought into crypto, and we added another, $2 billion to crypto, we're still looking at, just over a doubling of the market. And that does not account for the $1 million Bitcoin predictions. It doesn't even account for, I think, $100,000 Bitcoin. Like maybe that's about the area that we would get to. But that's like if all of that money were brought overnight. I don't know what the actual unfolding of this will be. I just know that change don't come at once. It's a wave. Thank you, Eddie Vedder. And that to have this kind of concept that in this moment in time, we're like a SEC ruling away from, shooting up to a $4 trillion total crypto market cap. Like it's not realistic in my mind. Anyway, when I look at these actual, if BlackRock were thinking that it was going to come into this space and make all of these consumer investors millionaires overnight, I would be questioning BlackRock as a sound funds manager. Like, that's not how they operate. That's not the timeline that things happen on. And you add one more ETF to their portfolio, what is the actual inflow going to be? Is it going to be $2 trillion? Is it going to double the entire ETF footprint that they have for one ETF overnight? There's not a chance. So anyway, just kind of tempering that news and tempering that, hyper bullish outlook with what is plain as day, on the website of the actual, players in the narrative. So what is BlackRock saying? Don't tell me what frickin' Plan B is saying. Anyway, a little tangent, but there you go. But as far as the narrative of this moment meaning anything special, did this moment mean anything special? Did this moment? 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 Were any of these the last chance? Were any of these, a do or die? And without exception, no. So anyway, that's just my little take for what it's worth. And yeah, may the force be with you. I don't know. Insert cheesy outro. No. And as far as cheesy outros go, you can check out ryanstoverart.com. That's a thing now. That's pretty cool. I've been making and selling bigger and bigger, cooler and cooler paintings, and I have a bunch of prints on there that are inexpensive. I've got some originals on there that are quite expensive. You can kind of cruise around. Other than that, yeah, cheers.